Okay, let's dive deep. We're looking at chapter 28 of the book of Deuteronomy today.
Hmm.
And this chapter, well, it presents one of the most stark, really comprehensive pictures in the text. It lays out this direct, unmistakable link between, what people do and what happens to them.
That's exactly right. The core idea is presented as this kind of absolute choice. You've got two paths laid out,
Mm.
and they lead to drastically different places.
Right.
One path is, well, immense blessings. The other, severe, really all-encompassing curses. And according to the text here, which path you end up on depends entirely on just one thing:
Which is?
obedience. Simple as that. Obedience to the commands and decrees given. It's a framework built completely on conditional outcomes.
Okay, so let's unpack that first path then, the one you definitely want to be on.
Right.
What does the text actually say you need to do to get these blessings?
Well, the condition is stated right up front, very clearly. You have to fully obey the Lord your God
Mhm.
and carefully follow all his commands.
Fully obey and carefully follow.
If you do that, the text promises you'll be, and this is quite a statement, set high above all the nations on earth. And importantly, it says these blessings won't just be like handed to you occasionally. They will come upon you and accompany you.
Accompany you. I like that phrasing.
Yeah.
Like they're traveling with you.
Exactly. They become part of your reality, not just fleeting moments. They're a constant state.
So what does this blessed reality actually look like then? According to the chapter, it sounds pretty good so far.
It really does. It describes prosperity hitting basically every single part of life, especially for, the agrarian society it was addressing. Your location itself is blessing the city and blessing the country.
So it doesn't matter where you are, you're covered. What about like family, food, the basics?
Abundance is definitely a key theme. The fruit of your womb will be blessed,
Yeah.
which points to, flourishing families, lots of children. Your crops of your land will be blessed, and the young of your livestock, it mentions calves and lambs specifically, they'll thrive too. So fertility, productivity in the fields, in the flocks, it's all guaranteed.
Okay, family, farm, covered. What about just the day-to-day stuff, the really mundane things?
Yep, it gets down to the essentials of daily living too.
Yeah.
Your basket and your kneading trough will be blessed.
Wow, even the bread bowl.
Right. The very tools you use for gathering and preparing your food are included. It shows how comprehensive this is meant to be.
So harvest, kitchen, all of it. What about just moving around, being safe?
That's covered too. You will be blessed when you come in and blessed when you go out. That suggests, safety, success, divine favor on all your journeys, all your activities, whether you're leaving home or coming back.
A blessing on just being mobile. Okay, what about bigger concerns like national security, enemies?
Military success is a specific promised outcome. The text is quite clear. The Lord will grant that the enemies who rise up against you will be defeated before you.
Defeated. How?
It paints a really vivid picture. They will come at you from one direction, but flee from you in seven. It suggests a total decisive victory. Your opponents just scatter completely.
One way in, seven ways out for the enemy. That's a powerful image of protection
Definitely.
and just general success, work, projects.
It extends to everything you try. There's a blessing promised on your barns,
Yeah.
so your stored wealth, and on everything you put your hand to,
Everything you try succeeds.
pretty much. And this blessing is specifically tied to the land they were promised. The Lord your God will bless you in the land he is giving you. So prosperity touching your stored resources and every single project you undertake.
It sounds like, yeah, everything you touch turns to gold, basically. How does this affect their standing, internationally among other nations?
Well, this obedience is meant to elevate them significantly. You'll be established as his holy people, set apart.
Set apart.
And then it says, all the peoples on earth will see that you were called by the name of the Lord, and they will fear you. So your unique relationship becomes visible, and it inspires respect, maybe even awe in others.
Being set high above, inspiring fear. That's a huge shift in status. And you mentioned abundance earlier. Does it come back to that?
Yes, it gets emphasized again, and it links it back to the covenant promise. The Lord will grant you abundant prosperity in the fruit of your womb, the young of your livestock, and the crops of your ground, in the land he swore to your ancestors to give you.
Right, fruitfulness tied directly to that ancestral promise.
Exactly. It's abundance rooted in the land and the covenant itself.
What about things like weather, the economy, things that feel a bit out of personal control?
Well, the text says the divine source provides the conditions needed for prosperity. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty, to send rain on your land in season and to bless all the work of your hands.
For guaranteed rain, which is crucial.
absolutely crucial for farming. And economically, it paints this picture of, well, dominance, really. You will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none.
Wow, that's a position of real financial strength, isn't it? Independence, not debt.
Precisely. And status within that structure.
Yeah.
The text uses this really strong symbolic language. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail.
Head, not tail. Clear hierarchy.
Very clear. And it reinforces it. You'll always be at the top, never at the bottom, but then comes the condition again, provided you pay attention to these commands, walk in these ways, and crucially,
Can I guess?
without turning aside to follow other gods. That part is non-negotiable in this framework.
So, okay, the blessings are incredibly wide-ranging. They touch personal health, family, work, money, national security status, even the weather. But the foundation, the thing repeated over and over, is absolute obedience and exclusive devotion. No other gods, period.
Exactly. Within this specific framework laid out here, that condition is everything. And, well, the text doesn't just paint the rosy picture. It lays out the alternative, the downside, in equally comprehensive and, frankly, terrifying detail.
Right. Here's the turn, then. What happens if that condition isn't met, if they don't obey?
Then, the text says, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. It's interesting. Just as the blessings accompany the obedient, the curses actively pursue and overtake the disobedient.
Overtake you? That sounds almost predatory.
It does. It implies they're inescapable if you're on that path.
And is the list of curses? Is it as detailed, or maybe even more so than the blessings?
Oh, much more detailed. And it often mirrors the blessings, but in this really devastating reversal. You're cursed in the city and cursed in the country.
Same locations, opposite effect.
Precisely. Your essential resources, remember the basket and kneading trough. Now, they will be cursed. Your productivity is cursed. Fruit of your womb, crops of your land, the young livestock, all reversed.
Family, food production, all cursed. And movement, coming and going.
Also cursed. Cursed when you come in and cursed when you go out. Every area that was touched by blessing is now touched by curse.
So what about just trying to get things done, general success?
That's replaced by utter failure. The text uses strong words. Curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you put your hand to.
Confusion and rebuke.
Yeah, this widespread failure explicitly leads to destruction and sudden ruin because of the evil you have done in forsaking him. So nothing you try will work. It just leads to collapse.
Failure leading straight to ruin. Okay. And the text gets really specific about physical suffering, doesn't it? I remember that part being quite extensive.
It really does. This is a particularly long and graphic section. The Lord will plague you with diseases until he has destroyed you. It lists specifics.
Like what?
Things like wasting disease, with fever and inflammation, with scorching heat and drought, with blight and mildew. And it says these things will relentlessly pursue you until you perish.
Wasting, fever, burning heat, a slow, horrible decline. Is that it for the physical stuff?
Oh no, it keeps going. It gets into severe skin conditions, tumors. The Lord will afflict you with the boils of Egypt. That's a clear callback to the Exodus plagues. And with tumors, festering sores, and the itch from which you cannot be cured.
Incurable boils and sores. Just intense, constant suffering. And didn't it mention boils even more specifically?
Yes, it paints this truly gruesome picture. The Lord will afflict your knees and legs with painful boils that cannot be cured, spreading from the soles of your feet to the top of your head.
Head to toe. Incurable pain, covering your whole body.
An absolutely agonizing physical state. And then, just to make sure nothing's missed, the text adds, every kind of sickness and disaster not recorded in this book of the law will also come upon you.
So it's not even limited to that horrifying list. It's anything and everything.
That's the implication. A total unleashing of physical suffering and disaster until destruction.
That is genuinely terrifying. What about the environment? You mentioned guaranteed rain with the blessings.
Complete opposite here. The sky over your head will be bronze, the ground beneath you iron. Bronze sky, iron ground. It's this powerful image of total, inescapable drought. No moisture from above, no give from the earth below, utterly parched.
And the rain itself?
Instead of life-giving rain, the Lord will turn the rain of your country into dust and powder. It will come down from the skies until you are destroyed. So what should nourish actually becomes destructive.
Dust and powder instead of rain. Okay. Military victory was a key blessing. What's the reversal?
Predictably, devastating defeat. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You will come at them from one direction, but flee from them in 7.
The exact mirror image.
Exactly. The blessing turned completely on its head. Now you're the ones being routed and scattered in chaos.
Fleeing in 7 directions. Total disarray. And what happens after the defeat?
It describes this utter lack of respect, even dignity and death. Your carcasses will be food for all the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and there will be no one to frighten them away.
Just left for scavengers. No burial.
No dignity at all. A grim, grim consequence.
What about the psychological side? All this disaster must have a huge impact.
Absolutely. The curses explicitly extend to mental distress. The text says you'll be afflicted with madness, blindness, and confusion of mind.
Madness, blindness, confusion, severe disorientation, and mental anguish?
Right. And daily life becomes this constant struggle. At midday, you will grope about like a blind man in the dark.
Even in broad daylight.
You will be unsuccessful in everything you do. Day after day, you will be oppressed and robbed with no one to rescue you. Just this feeling of being completely lost, helpless, constantly victimized.
Oppressed, robbed, every day, no help coming, and the things they see around them.
Apparently, the sights you see will drive you mad. The sheer scale of suffering and destruction causes severe psychological trauma. It also describes the emotional state during exile.
What's that like?
An anxious mind, eyes weary with longing, and a despairing heart among the nations where they're scattered. Just deep, pervasive emotional suffering.
Anxiety, weariness, despair, and doesn't mention fear.
Oh, yes. This is one of the most chilling descriptions, I think. You will live in constant suspense, filled with dread both night and day, never sure of your life.
Never sure of your life.
And it continues. In the morning you will say, if only it were evening. And in the evening, if only it were morning. Because of the terror that will fill your hearts and the sights that your eyes will see.
Just wishing for time to pass, for the current horror to end, but it never does.
Exactly. Life becomes this cycle of intense terror with no peace, day or night.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable psychological pain layered on top of everything else.
Okay, so physical agony, mental breakdown. What about social structures? Families, the economy, the blessings promise strength there?
Again, a dramatic and painful reversal. You face widespread loss and failure in your core relationships and resources. You will be pledged to be married to a woman, but another will take her and ravish her.
A deeply personal violation.
Absolutely. You will build a house, but you will not live in it. You will plant a vineyard, but you will not even begin to enjoy its fruit. All your labor, confiscated or ruined.
Home, vineyard, gone. What about basic property?
Gone too. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will eat none of it. Your donkey will be forcibly taken from you and will not be returned. Your sheep will be given to your enemies. Your essential livelihood just stolen or destroyed right in front of you.
Loss of spouse, home, crops, livestock. What about children?
This is perhaps one of the most tragic consequences listed. Your sons and daughters will be given to another nation, and you will wear out your eyes watching for them day after day, powerless to lift a hand.
Powerless, just watching your children taken.
And it repeats this theme. You will have sons and daughters, but you will not keep them, because they will go into captivity, the loss of the next generation.
That's heartbreaking. And does it mention how others react like foreigners in the land?
Yes, it points out that those outside the community will actually thrive at their expense. A people that you do not know will eat what your land and labor produce, and you will have nothing but cruel oppression all your days.
So outsiders consume everything you produce while you're just oppressed.
And this leads to that devastating shift in social status we talked about earlier, but in reverse. The alien who lives among you will rise above you, higher and higher, but you will sink lower and lower.
The foreigner rises, you sink. The complete opposite of being the head, not the tail.
Precisely. And the economic reversal is made explicit. He will lend to you, but you will not lend to him. He will be the head, but you will be the tail. You become totally economically subservient, dependent on the very people who were once just residents among you.
Complete loss of economic power and independence. The text also got specific about how crops fail, didn't it? Mentioning pests.
It did, yes. Just demonstrating again how comprehensive these agricultural curses are. You will sow much seed in the field, but you will harvest little because locusts will devour it.
Locusts.
And it repeats that. Swarms of locusts will take over all your trees and the crops of your land. It also mentions worms destroying vineyards before the fruit is ready, and all is just dropping off the trees before you can get oil.
So, pests, blight. Everything conspires to take your harvest before you can benefit. Beyond these internal disasters, a major consequence mentioned is exile, right? Scattering.
Yes, this is presented as a huge judgment. The Lord will drive you and the king you set over you to a nation unknown to you. There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone.
Forced displacement and forced assimilation into foreign religions.
Exactly. Driven out, forced to adopt other practices. And they're standing among these nations they're driven to.
It's not going to be good, I'm guessing.
Far from it. Remember, the blessing was being feared and respected. The curse transforms you into a thing of horror and an object of scorn and ridicule to all the nations where the Lord will drive you.
Horror, scorn, ridicule, and the scattering itself.
It's described as total. The Lord will scatter you among all nations, from one end of the earth to the other. But this scattering brings no relief, no peace. Among those nations you will find no repose, no resting place for the sole of your foot.
Scattered everywhere, no rest, just ridicule and forced foreign worship. What about their numbers, the population?
Well, the blessing promised numbers like the stars in the sky. The curse brings the exact opposite. You, who were as numerous as the stars in the sky, will be left but few in number because you did not obey.
From countless stars down to just a few. A drastic reduction.
A tiny remnant, and perhaps the ultimate symbol of this reversal is the return to bondage.
How is that described?
It describes being sent back to Egypt, the very place they were freed from, in ships, with the instruction they were never to go back that way. There you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you.
Offered for sale as slaves, but nobody even wants to buy them.
Right. It symbolizes this ultimate depth of degradation, of worthlessness in the eyes of their enemies. Even as slaves, they're unwanted.
Wow, that's profound. Does the text explicitly say why all these curses come? Is there a specific reason given beyond just disobedience?
Yes, it gives a specific reason, and it's tied to their attitude during the good times, during prosperity.
Yes.
It says, because you did not serve the Lord your God joyfully and gladly in the time of prosperity, therefore in hunger and thirst, in nakedness and dire poverty, you will serve the enemies the Lord sends against you.
So a lack of joyful gratitude in abundance leads to serving enemies and total deprivation.
Exactly. And that servitude is described vividly. He will put an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you, a symbol of just brutal, heavy, inescapable servitude.
An iron yoke. And the nation God sends against them, what are they like?
They're portrayed as swift, foreign, and absolutely ruthless. A nation brought from far away from the ends of the earth, like an eagle swooping down. A nation whose language you will not understand.
Alien, fast, like a predator.
A fierce-looking nation without respect for the old or pity for the young. Just terrifying, merciless invaders.
No respect for age, no pity for youth. What do they actually do?
They will devour the young of your livestock and the crops of your land until you are destroyed. They will leave you no grain, new wine, or oil until you are ruined. They basically strip the land bare.
Total economic devastation by this foreign power. And then they lay siege.
Yes, they target the cities, the strongholds. They will lay siege to all the cities throughout your land until the high fortified walls in which you trust fall down. The very defenses relied upon will crumble.
Sieges are notoriously brutal, and it's during the siege that the text includes probably the most horrific detail of all, isn't it?
It is. It's deeply disturbing, and it's clearly meant to convey the absolute rock-bottom extreme of suffering and desperation. Because of the starvation caused by the enemy's siege, the text states plainly, you will eat the fruit of the womb, the flesh of the sons and daughters the Lord your God has given you.
Eating your own children, just out of sheer desperate starvation, that's an incredibly graphic portrayal of how low things can get.
And the text even goes on to emphasize how this intense famine breaks down the most fundamental human bonds. It mentions even gentle, sensitive parents resorting to this, hoarding the flesh secretly from their own family members because there's literally nothing else. It's a picture of absolute societal and moral collapse under extreme duress.
A level of suffering that shatters basic humanity. And finally, the text says these curses aren't just temporary, they become something lasting.
That's right. It concludes that section by saying, they will be a sign and a wonder to you and your descendants forever. These outcomes aren't just punishments that happen and are over. They become this perpetual warning, a lasting, visible demonstration of the consequences outlined.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back from the lists themselves, the shoe detail. What this chapter really hammers home is an incredibly explicit, incredibly comprehensive, and seemingly inescapable cause and effect relationship.
That's the absolute fundamental structure here, isn't it? The text presents a world, or at least this covenant relationship, operating on a simple, stark principle. Complete, all-encompassing blessing flows directly and inevitably from obedience,
Right.
while complete, all-encompassing ruin and suffering flow just directly and inevitably from disobedience. There's really no middle ground presented here, no partial outcome. It's all or nothing.
And the scope is just breathtaking, really. It affects every conceivable area of life, right down from your personal health, your family's well-being,
Hmm.
to the fertility of your land, the success of your army, your national reputation, your psychological state, your economic standing, and ultimately your very survival as a people, your place in the world.
It's absolutely total. What this chapter lays out is this covenant framework
Mm-hmm.
where faithfulness doesn't just bring some nice benefits and unfaithfulness doesn't just bring some manageable problems. No, it's presented as an absolute state of being. Every single aspect of existence is either under the full weight of blessing or the full weight of the curse, and it all hinges entirely on that core condition of obedience.
Okay, so we have this chapter laying out this absolute stark, all or nothing consequence framework. Obedience leads to blessings covering every corner of life imaginable, and disobedience leads to curses doing exactly the same thing in a reverse. From, boils on your skin to national exile and being sold into slavery where no one even wants you.
It's a very powerful, incredibly unfiltered vision of consequences flowing directly from actions, specifically within the context of that covenant relationship being described.
So thinking about the sheer scale and the totality of these consequences, both good and bad, how every single aspect of life, from the most intimate and personal to the broadly national and geopolitical, is presented as being subject to either immense blessing or utterly devastating curse, based entirely on this one condition of obedience. What does that kind of framework, where the stakes are literally everything, suggest to you about the perceived power and the scope of the commands themselves and the relationship being described here? What does it imply about the nature of the choice being put before the people?